Hey, it's your friend Choice CJ here, and this is going to be my Week 3 Team Builder in Battle for the BBL Season number 2. We are going up against the Montreal Milotics, coached by Matt O'Shea. Make sure you go down into the description below, go check out his link to his YouTube channel, and check out the links for all the other coaches in the BBL. So, Matt, like us, is 2-0 coming into this game. We've gotten up two pretty nice wins the first 2 weeks. Getting a 4-0 win versus JP Westside and a pretty lucky 6-0 win versus Max Rapture. I'm hoping to get a win, of course, in this week, but I think it's definitely going to be our toughest test yet. Matt's team is pretty spooky. Let's look at the roster, go through my team, and then hop straight on into the battle. So Matt on his squad has Mega Aerodactyl, Greninja, Infernape, Mew, Rotom Ghost, Dialga, Volbeat, Glalie, Slurpuff, Tangrowth, Quagsire, and Dusclops. I think that's what it is. Is it Dusclops, Duckskull? I can never remember these stupid names. It is a Protein Greninja, by the way. And I think that's the number one threat to my team. This thing is so spooky. It's just got very good coverage for my team, of course. I mean, it's a freaking Protein Greninja. It has stab on everything, and yes, it has like the move pool of a god. So it's going to be very hard to deal with. I think he can very easily just run one stab move. Either water or dark is fine. He runs Gunk Shot for my Primarina. Maybe he runs Ice Beam for like Garchomp and Trevenant. And then he runs like U-Turn or Spikes in the last slot. That should pretty much give him the ability to cover my whole team. So I'm definitely going to be trying to get rid of that threat as soon as possible. Infernape's also pretty spooky. Just because of, like, again, its coverage. Like, it gets like really good coverage for hitting my Primarina, which is sort of my only switch in to Infernape. Primarina is so incredibly pressured this game, it's actually crazy. So I can't use Primarina to deal with both of those mons most likely, so I'm going to have to sort of play it by ear, try and handle those things. He has some very powerful mons on his team otherwise that aren't necessarily as spooky. For example, Mega Arrow is just one of the scariest mons in general to have to deal with. I hate having to play it. But luckily, I've got 3 mons with super effective priority for dealing with it. So there's even a decent chance that it doesn't come, in my opinion. Mew is one of the scariest setup mons in the whole game, but I have a Arceus Dark that should hopefully deter it from doing anything too crazy. Dialga is potentially spooky, but I've got 2 mons with super effective stab that are faster than it that can hopefully revenge it. Slurpuff has, on paper, a scary sweeper, but again, I've got double Bullet Punch on my team, plus I have a Heatran that can potentially deal with it. So basically, I just have to figure out like what's the biggest threat to my team and make sure that I preserve the appropriate checks to whatever it is he tries to throw at me. In terms of mons I'm definitely expecting a Greninja, Infernape, Fizdef Mew for dealing with Medicham. It's like one of the best checks to Medicham in the game. I can see Dialga coming, just because it's a threat. Slurpuff I don't think is a very good Belly Drum sweeper, but I can see him bringing like a bulky Slurpuff, because a Garchomp kind of cleans up without Slurpuff on the team. And also there's a chance that he brings webs on Slurpuff, and like I just don't want to get caught off guard by that. I've been caught off guard by Slurpuff with webs in the past in other leagues, and so I don't want to underestimate that thing once again. So let me just quickly blow through my team, and then we'll hop on into the battle. So I'm starting off with an Akaberry Scizor. I have Akaberry on this thing just because if I'm switching it into Arrow or Tangrowth or things like that, and they catch me with a prediction on the switch, I don't want to get punished too hard for that. I want to still have the ability to threaten them. And so that's what the Akaberry is for. Bullet Punch, U-Turn, Superpower, just pretty much just there for Dialga. And then, like I said, Defog, I want to have just for Slurpuff's webs mainly. And also, like, again, if he has spikes on Greninja for whatever reason, I don't want to be punished too hard by spikes. I don't really need to outspeed anything with this spread, so I just put basically max HP, max attack with a tiny bit of speed for random speed creeping. Next, I do have a Mega Medicham, pretty much the same set that I've run like the last 2 weeks. Baton Pass with double stab, and then Bullet Punch. Bullet Punch is there as, just like it is on Scizor, as insurance for Aerodactyl, for Glalie, for Slurpuff, things like that. It's also my way to lure in Mew and then get my Arceus in for free, because that's a pretty good situation for me. I'm going to be threatening that thing pretty heavily with my Judgment. So That's what Metacham is there to set up for. If some reason like Mew is eliminated early, this Mon actually does quite a bit of work. So I'm hoping that Metacham can get put into the right situation and clean up. Then we have a Kebia Berry Primarina, which is rocking a Sleep Talk set, Rest Talk set. Like I said, this is very highly pressured by both Greninja and Infernape. The most powerful move that both of those Mons have for hitting Primarina is Gunk Shot, so we do have the Kebia Berry for that. And then we can retaliate with one of our powerful stab moves. The only kind of tricky thing is that if he does have Gunk Shot on the Greninja, he's going to become a poison type, and so my Moonblast is no longer going to be hitting it for super effective damage, so that kind of stinks. But I can still throw off a Scald and do a good chunk of damage to Greninja. All I need to do really is get some chip in order to set up my late game, so I'm not going to be too bothered if I can't Oko it. But like, for example, with Infernape, if it hits me with a Gunk Shot, I definitely am going to Oko it back with Scald, so I don't have to worry too hard about that. I have a Chople Berry Heatran this week. Because, like I said, I don't think Premier is going to be able to reasonably handle both Greninja and Infernape. I wanted Heatran to be a secondary check for the Infernape, so that's where we're going with Chople Berry. It's true that he could just be running Earthquake for the Heatran, but it doesn't really make that much sense to be packing Earthquake for him this week, just because the close combat hits pretty much everything else that he needs to hit, that he would otherwise want to hit with Earthquake. He'll probably have dual stabs, U-turn, and then maybe like HP Ice or Gunk Shot in his final slot. I'm really expecting a Scarf set because this is his best way of revenge killing a setup Arceus, which I've abused in the first 2 weeks. The dual stabs plus Earth Power hits his whole team incredibly hard, and then I have Toxic for hitting annoying stuff like Quagsire, which might otherwise want to switch in on Heatran. We're just speed creeping a Mew that is speed creeping max speed Scizor with this set. So Scizor with max speed hits 128, Mew would then get up to 129, and then Heatran is going 1 point above that. We do have as well a SD Garchomp with Dragonium Z. Like I said in the team builder, Garchomp is actually really good this game because he only has Slurpuff as a Dragon Resist. His Steel type is Dialga, and obviously has that secondary Dragon typing, and so it makes it not able to resist the Outrage. It makes it neutral to the Outrage. So there are certain Mons that I'm forced to click Outrage on, like Rotom Ghost, because they were obviously immune to Earthquake. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think that is so bad, because his Dragon Resists are very few. And then last but not least, we have our Arceus Dark. And we're actually going with a workup set this week. So workup I thought would be really nice because with that I can get a boosted extreme speed, which is going to be my best way of dealing with things like Greninja and Infernape. Because like I said, Greninja, it's just so scary versus my team. It outspeeds everything. He can come in with that and potentially threaten this with a pretty powerful move like Low Kick. And then Infernape, it just logically makes sense to me that he'll bring a Scarf set. So being able to outspeed that thing with extreme speed will be really nice. At +1, I do bet 60% to both of those Mons. So I don't even need to get them super low in order to deal with them. I just need to get them in range. So if I set up hazards and they pivot in and out a couple times, if I'm able to use Scizor or Metacham to throw off bullet punches versus those Mons, or I get rough skin damage with my Garchomp on them, it's going to get me very close to putting them in range. The nice thing about Workup versus something like SD is that it still lets me run Judgment for that very powerful Dark-type move to threaten stuff like Mew, which is otherwise pretty spooky. If I was just like SD with like Extreme Speed and Earthquake or something like that, I would not really have a great way to threaten Mew, but now I do. So that's the team this week. We have enough speed on this Mon for Rotom Ghost, by the way. That's what I'm using to speed creep for a bunch of my Mons. This is speed creeping Rotom Ghost. This is also speed creeping Rotom Ghost. But yeah, like I said, that is the team. We're going to give it our best shake. Matt is definitely a tough opponent, and we're going to hope for the best. So with that, let's flash on over to the battle. And as you can see, Matt has elected to bring the Infernape, the Dialga, the Mega Arrow, Mew, Slurpuff, and Greninja. So I'm definitely not too surprised to be seeing Mew, Infernape, and Greninja, like I said in the team builder. Arrow, I was just slightly surprised by. Like, it is obviously a very scary Mon to have to deal with, but like I was explaining, there's just so much super effective priority on my team for hitting Arrow that I didn't think it made a ton of sense for him to bring it. But, it does outspeed a ton of my team, and I don't have a very natural Scarfer for trying to hit it, just trying to outspeed it. So I can appreciate that he still wanted to bring it. Dialga is super spooky just because it's very powerful. And then Slurpuff, like I said, I didn't necessarily think he would bring it, and if he did bring it, I'm expecting like a bulkier set to try and hit Garchomp. The offensive set I don't think is like the most natural fit in this matchup. So we're gonna have to scout out and see what sort of set he chose to bring on his Slurpuff. I am very concerned about webs. He might lead it. There's also a really good chance that he leads with like his Infernape or his Greninja. And so anticipating one of those two Mons, I do want to lead with my Primarina just because it's sort of a good matchup versus both of those things. I could just click Scald versus pretty much either of those Mons. He doesn't really appreciate Scald in general on his team. Like, yes, Dialga is a switch into Scald, but then I can hit it with Moonblast and do a pretty decent chunk of damage. So let's not waste any more time. Let's just go ahead and click play and hop on into this battle. It's, I guess, a little bit of a long one. I think it's just a lot of turns and animations and stuff. So we're going to wish good luck, have fun to Matt, of course, and we're going to get right on into this turn 1. And he leads with Calgary, his Infernape, shoutouts to AA, round 2 for 20, and I'm going to lead off with my Primarina. So this is kind of the matchup that I was anticipating. I'm going to throw off my Scald here, anticipating him to go for a Gunk Shot. He actually shows the Thunder Punch, and it does a pretty decent chunk of damage, just 100 damage. I was having a little bit of trouble trying to calculate exactly what sort of set this is. I realized afterwards that it was Iron Fist, and that's why it did a little bit more damage than I expected. I didn't know if it was like an Adamant Nature or whatever. So like thinking that maybe he's an Adamant Nature, my Garchomp should be able to outspeed. So I do go into the Garchomp. Obviously I'm immune to the Thunder Punch, but then he's able to bust out the HP Ice and throw that off on me. I knew that even if he was like I was doing a weird calc, that I would not die to the HP Ice. So I figured it would be worth it just to leave my Garchomp in and try and hit it with the Earthquake, even if he outsped me. So we do get rid of that Infernape very early on, though it's definitely a very spooky threat. And he's able to go straight on into his Greninja. And so because my Primarina is already very weak, I don't have a switch into this thing. I decide just to stay in with my Chomp and try and hit it with Earthquake. In case he tries to do something cheeky like throw off a Spike or U-turn or anything else, like predicting my switch. Obviously that didn't work out. And I'm going to be able to go right on into my Scizor. So because he did go for the Ice Punch, he is now an Ice type, which means he's very vulnerable to my threat of Bullet Punch. So I am just going to click U-turn, expecting him to switch on out, and he's going to bring in his Dialga as I go for a U-turn. And so this gets me into a nice position. I can go straight out into my Medicham, get off my Mega Evolution, and I can threaten the high jump kick on this thing. And he should be switching in his Mew to try and hit my, to deal with my Medicham. So I'm just going to click Baton Pass as I expect this Mew to come in. And so that's exactly what happens. And so I could potentially go back into my Scizor, but I want to try and scout this thing's set. Like if I were him in this position, basically I would bring like Roost, Psychic move. I guess you could even bring like a Ghost move to try and hit the Medicham a little bit harder. But I'm also thinking that he might bring Flamethrower for Scizor, and there's also a very, very good chance that he brings Will-O-Wisp. And so versus that sort of set, I think going into Heatran is a pretty safe move, just because like that sort of set doesn't have a very good way to hit Heatran. So I go into that, I throw off a Fire Blast, and it turns out that I outspeed. So yeah, whether he's speed creeping the Scizor or not remains to be seen. But he is somewhere between 0 speed investment and enough speed for Scizor. And he throws off the Bulk Up, which is kind of spooky. So I throw off a Flash Cannon because I'm doing the damage calcs, and with my Chople Berry, a Drain Punch from this Mew is not going to put him in range of surviving 2 Flash Cannons. So I go for the Flash Cannon instead of the Fire Blast to do that maximum amount of damage. I'm of course wishing that I had gone for the Flash Cannon, because now he's just throwing off the Roost over and over, and so he has just a tiny bit of extra health versus what he might have had otherwise. I do get very lucky and I land the Burn, which is going to neutralize this thing offensively quite a bit. But as you can see, my Heatran is just not quite strong enough to break through this Mew without having something like Dark Pulse. So I'm just throwing off the Fire Blast over and over, hoping that maybe he just goes for an attacking move versus me. Because like I said, like if I go for a Fire Blast and then he goes for an attacking move versus me, he should be in range of dying to the next move. Even like to Flash Cannon, he should probably be in range. But he doesn't seem like he's going to give up on just roosting versus me. So I decided to take this as an opportunity to go into my Scizor. For at this point, I've seen enough that I don't think he's going to be able to have Will-O-Wisp on the set. And I guess he could have Fire Punch or something, but I do have the Aqua Berry to save me in that situation. So he does go for a second bulk up. I'm going to throw off a U-turn. And I'm going to go into Arceus and try and throw off a Judgment. There is a decent chance that he is Colbur Berry. He's shown that he's not Aqua Berry, or not Aqua Berry. He's shown that he's not Rocky Helmet at this point. So like he could be Colbur Berry, but I feel like I don't have any other play besides trying to go into Arceus and hit this thing with a Judgment. And even if he does have the Colbur Berry to survive this Judgment, I should not die to the fighting move, and I should be able to kill it with the next Judgment. But Matt is going to pass out, or he's going to throw off another very familiar tech. He's going to throw off the Baton Pass. So it's just so funny because the last time I played Matt, he brought a Bulk Up Baton Pass Mew. And he used that to Baton Pass into a Snorlax that ended up doing a ton of damage to me. In this situation, he is going to pass on into his Greninja, which is ridiculously spooky because I don't have any way to revenge kill this extremely well because I don't have like a Scarf Electric type or anything like that to come in and do a ton of damage. And because he's got +2 physical defense boosts, it also means that my physical priority is going to be much harder to hit him with. So because I'm anticipating the low kick to come off, I'm going to switch on into my Medicham and take that resisted hit. I can throw off the Bullet Punch, do a little bit of damage, and he's going to follow up with the Ice Punch. So Ice Punch is nice for me because it once again puts him in a position where he's vulnerable to this Bullet Punch from my Scizor. It's going to put him at a very low range of HP, and it's going to put him in range of dying to Extreme Speed from my Arceus. So we were able to deal with this threat, but like we really like put ourselves in a bad position here because he has Arrow and the Slurpuff on the team, and we just had to get rid of our 2 Bullet Punch users, which are going to be our best ways of dealing with that Arrow and that Slurpuff. So I'm not very excited about that prospect. I don't quite know how I'm going to play out the rest of this match. But, you know, what I do know is that we had to somehow eliminate this Greninja, and so this is the steps that I had to take. He did have that all-out pummeling as well on his Greninja, which is pretty funny. But yeah, it turned out his whole set was Ice Punch, Low Kick, U-Turn, and Power-Up Punch. So the thought of this thing going for Power-Up Punch to getting another boost is just freaking scary to me. But yeah, like I said, we are able to take out that thing, which is really quite nice. So now he brings in his Slurpuff. I can't deal with this thing quite yet, and so I'm just going to go into my Primarina and sack it off without the Greninja and the Infernape on his side of the field. My Primarina doesn't really have much usefulness at this point. It's definitely the least valuable member of the team. So if he turns out to be like a belly drum set, he would kill my Primarina, but then I do have a safe switch in my Heatran. We do survive a +6 Adamant Drain Punch with our Chople Berry. And so I'm going to go into that here, and I'm just going to throw off the Flash Cannon, which is going to be able to eliminate this Mew that he sacks off, because he no longer really needs it. I don't know, I guess he could Baton Pass some bulk ups into his Aerodactyl if he needs. But I digress. We take out the Mew, he brings in his Dialga, and I don't really have a switch into this, so I just have to leave my Heatran in. And it turns out that we go first and hit it up with a very powerful Earth Power here. He's going to follow up with an Aura Sphere, and unlucky for him, I do have the Chople Berry, which is going to absorb a lot of that damage. It's not even going to do half, which is fantastic. So and he is Life Orb. It does very little damage for being a Life Orb Dialga, which is pretty crazy. I throw off the Flash Cannon next because I figure he is in range of dying to that, and if he wants to get cheeky and predict that going into his Aerodactyl, I can catch that with big damage with the Flash Cannon. One last note about that exchange, it turned out that he and I actually had the same speed. He hit 130 speed just like I did, so we won 2 speed ties in a row, which is a pretty lucky situation there. So we got lucky with the burn earlier on the Mew, which wasn't a disaster, but like for him, since he was Baton Pass, but you know, it just made it a little bit safer with my Heatran. And then we got lucky winning 2 speed ties. And then we get pretty lucky again here versus this Aerodactyl. And we survive the Stone Edge, and we're able to throw off this Flash Cannon and do a really ridiculous amount of damage to it. He was Adamant 252. I knew that he would be just because he had no reason to run Jolly in this matchup, and so it was, I think, like a 50-50 roll versus my spread for him to kill with the Stone Edge. So the fact that we were able to survive there and get that critical damage off is really nice for us. Then my last mon, of course, is this Arceus. I'm going to come in. I know I can survive one of any move, and so I'm going to throw off a workup. And so now at this position, I need to get myself to... it's a little bit of a tricky situation. I'm 108 HP with a negative defense nature. And so with that defensive investment, we cannot take 2 Play Roughs from Slurpuff. And then even if he is a uninvested Slurpuff, and it, like, based on the damage that he's doing to Primarina, I am thinking that it's a non-bulk invested Slurpuff. Like, we do, like, E-Speed does about 50%, but if he is Citrus Berry, obviously he's going to get a little bit of extra HP, and I'm going to pause it real quick so I can continue to talk about this situation. So yeah, just to repeat what I just said, if he is uninvested, E-Speed does over, like, 2 E-Speeds does over 100%, but he does have potentially that Citrus Berry to give him the extra 25% HP, which means that he would be able to then survive the second E-Speed. And then based on my bulk investment, he should be able to kill me with 2 Play Roughs. Like, versus the Aerodactyl, I was trying to get myself into a situation where I would be, like, at the most amount of HP possible, and then I could potentially get off a second workup, because then 2 extreme speeds at +2 will be able to kill even through Citrus Berry, most likely. And then if I could get to the right amount of HP, that puts me in a good situation to survive that first Play Rough, like I said. I went for E-Speed versus the Aerodactyl a little bit earlier than I had hoped, just because I thought there was a reasonable chance that he would go into his Slurpuff on my predicted recover. And so I didn't want to give him the free switch into the Slurpuff. So I don't know if you could quite call it like a 50-50, but that was like the calculus there for going for the extreme speed at the time that I did. So yeah, now he's in with his Slurpuff. All that he has to do is click Play Rough versus me twice in order to win the game. And for me to win the game, basically I just have to hope that for some reason he's not Citrus Berry. But he's still offensive. Like, offensive without Citrus Berry is not really a Slurpuff set that exists. But anyway, I do throw off this first extreme speed versus the Slurpuff. Maybe I get a crit or something and do a bit more damage. We do 50%. He does pop the Citrus Berry, so I'm thinking, oh shit, you know, this is not a very good situation for me. And he actually belly drums. And so the fact that he belly drums, he's now going to reduce his HP and put himself in range of dying to a second E-Speed. And so that's actually going to cinch the game for us, which is totally crazy. I didn't think that we were going to be able to win in that situation. We do end up getting the crit, which is pretty funny. But he might have survived if he had the full range of HP. But so for him in his position, he didn't exactly know what HP spread I had. He was doing his calcs based off of the fact that I was 252 HP without the minus defense nature. And so for that, without the belly drum boost, he actually would not have been able to 2 a KO with Play Rough. So that's what led him to go for a belly drum. And then at the same time, he was thinking that I was more special attack invested. And so based on his calcs, if I was not an attack boosting nature with max attack, he would be able to pretty easily survive 2 E-Speeds, especially after the Citrus Berry boost, even if he goes for a belly drum. So it was a really tough situation for him just because he had no idea what sort of HP investment I had. And that ended up forcing him to go for the wrong move there. But again, the only reason it was the wrong move is because he didn't have all the information. I had more information than him in that situation. So we're going to end up with a very, very narrow 1-0 victory versus our buddy Matt. And so, like I said during the match, we got lucky a couple of times. Getting that burn on Mew definitely made that exchange with Heatran much more favorable, even if it didn't like literally lose him the match right then and there. Like, he was still able to baton pass the boost into Greninja and do a ton of damage to my entire team. But yeah, like I said, just put me in a much more favorable position, him at a much more disadvantageous position. And then winning the speed ties with the Heatran, particularly that second one, was really nice. Because it meant that my Heatran was then able to take 1 hit from that Aerodactyl, which was also lucky because it was a roll. So for us, like, we just kind of got all of the good factors going in our favor this week. Unfortunately, Matt didn't have any of the luck and he wound up on the losing side of this battle. But this is one of the best battles I've had in a long time. But definitely best battle I've had since UBL Championship. It was pretty crazy. So shout outs to Matt for a really awesome game, and also for being just a really good sport afterwards. Like, he could have been salty about how things didn't really go his way in the match, but he just, was so pumped that the match was so close, and he's just had a great attitude about it afterwards. And he's got to know too that he's going to bounce back after this week, and he's probably going to make playoffs. So losing 1 week, especially as close as it was, isn't really going to ruin his season. So that's why he had a good attitude as well. So make sure you go check him out down in the description below. Of course, we are going to be moving up to 3-0 for our record, moving into week 4, and we've got a very tough matchup in week 4, going up against the one and only Gypsy King. It's going to be a very tough game. He's got a very scary squad. He has a very funky squad. So he's got 7 S tier Mons on his team, and then 3 filler Mons. He's got Regigigas, Marini, and what was his other one? I can't remember. Some other sort of 1 or 2 point Mon. And then he's got a bunch of other shit like Latias, Weavile, Ho-Oh, Magirna, Ferrothorn. So just like I said, a bunch of S tier stuff. And it's quite the team. It's going to be very hard to handle, especially when you obviously consider the caliber of player that he is. So we're just hoping that we don't get 6-0'd by him. But we're going to try and give him a run for his money with our team, which is also pretty spooky. So if you're looking forward to that matchup, I appreciate it. Of course, if you left a like down below and you dropped a sub, so that way you can stay up to date on the BBL action and all of my other latest and greatest Pokemon and gaming content. So until the next time, I'll see you guys later.